Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation, along here with...
Good afternoon. I'm Bonnie Snyder, your co-host.
And we're twins.
We are twinsies today, and
Yeah.
we did not plan this.
No.
Did not plan this at all.
No, that's really kind of cool, though. First off, of course, we want to thank Rob, our tech guy, because we couldn't do this if he wasn't here, and John, our producer, for allowing us to have this platform so that we can bring some information to you and talk and help you and help us and just
Do
what we do. So we're still in the midst of a lot of things going on in the community, but last week was the big thing with Parks and Rec, and they had we had mentioned their bowling tournament that they had, and that was sold out. All three of their events were sold out.
Yes.
So and you were able to go Saturday to the
walk run, yes.
And that was sold out. So I did pull some pictures from the Facebook page from Parks and Rec.
I have to notice that. Yeah, I mean, nice thing about social media, if it's out there, it's out there.
Well, and it makes it easy because I had texted Kim and I was looking on my phone and I couldn't find images from they did a painting one too. And on my phone I couldn't find it, so I texted Kim and I'm like, do you have pictures? And she's like, it's on our Facebook page. That's their painting event that they did. And like I said, all their events were sold out, so they did an awesome job. So then she says they're on social media, so I went on my laptop and pulled them out. That's for the end. So they did. You have the picture of that's from our event. What are you doing with the pictures, Rob?
Yeah, I know. But you know what? That's right. There we go.
That's from Saturday. That's from the 5K walk run.
Yeah, that was out in Withlacoochee River State Park, out in Dade City, which is a really, beautiful park in the Dade City area. And this was their second annual 5K 1 mile walk run. And the interesting thing about this is initially we weren't going to set up a table. We were not going to do it. It was not designed to have vendor tables.
Right.
And one of my coworkers, had reached out to Kim, didn't realize that I was doing, doing the event. So she reached out to Kim, and she happened to mention, that she was, part of, the team that I work on, and told her, she said, I work with Bonni. And, because Kim was like, oh, you work with Bonni? Well, you can have whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. And I'm chuckling because, we do have that nice working relationship with her. But, the interesting thing about this is, as we were doing the planning for this, initially, we weren't going to have vendor tables set up. But this year, what I noticed is there was a lot of foot traffic to the table this year. It might have been where we were set up, and I'm thinking, where we were set up, was it the information we had on the table, which is very similar to what we had last year. However, I got into a conversation with a woman from Canada who, was talking about, what we are doing over here and what she was doing, people, over across the border are doing. And it was really nice. It was a good 40, I think we ended up talking for a good half an hour.
Oh, really?
But like I said, the event was amazing. They really did a good job. And, last Saturday for them was back to back to back to back.
Oh, yeah.
They had the run, and then they had, and I might get the times and whatnot mixed up, but they had the run, they had the kitten yoga, they had the painting.
The bowling.
And something, I think bowling was the day before.
Bowling was Wednesday night.
Right. And so the run, kitten yoga, and I want to say I think the painting event were all on Saturday.
They were all on the same day?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we started at like, 6 o'clock in the morning to set up for the run. The run went until like 10ish. Yeah, until 10. Because, there was one aspect of it said it was supposed to go until noon, but it was, the actual run
Right.
was 8 to 10. And then as they were breaking down, from there, they had to zip over to get kitten yoga set up, to get...
I really wanted to go to kitten yoga.
I have allergies, so kitten yoga.
Oh, I wanted to go to kitten yoga so bad, but I couldn't make the event at all because I spent all last week duck and dog sitting. My neighbors went on, they had their 1-year anniversary and they went back to where they got married, but they had hatched 2 ducks like 2 weeks prior to that. And I usually take care of the dogs, but this time I had baby ducks to take care of.
Oh, nice.
So I go over there like 5 times a day, to take care of everybody, and I couldn't do anything, but yeah, I wanted to go to kitten yoga, and my neighbor's like, "You're not going to kitten yoga," because she knew I'd come back home with another cat. So I guess it was probably just as well I was duck and dog sitting.
Well, the thing I liked about it, when I was telling people that, Parks and Rec was doing, kitten yoga, and as we're, what's the word I'm looking for? Promoting, their events, and I was like, this is all about, suicide and, suicide awareness and whatnot. Rod had posted they had, an event where
he went and
he
spoke.
at an event. But, and I was like, oh, they're doing kitten yoga, and, a couple of the colleagues were like, kitten yoga? Like, what is kitten yoga? I was like, I don't know. This Parks and Recreation thinking outside the box, which, when you're focusing on, bringing community resources together and dealing with, subjects such as, get suicide awareness, mental health, substance misuse or whatnot. I think sometimes it's very helpful and useful to think outside the box. And so, another friend of mine, they were like, I've done goat yoga before.
Yeah, I was going to
but I've
say,
never done kitten yoga. I was like, I don't know. All I know is I would love to be there, but I have I have cat allergies, which is weird. I'm not allergic. There's some cats that don't bother me, but I was like, I wasn't going to chance it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So I'm curious to know what is the concept, like how do the kittens play into yoga unless you're sitting
Well,
there.
they're just probably the same way goats do.
Yeah, but they said goats walk. They let the goats walk on you and everything else like that.
Cats will walk on you.
I'm just thinking, when I'm looking at, kitten yoga, mindfulness and whatnot, just being present with the cat as it's, as you're
Oh, yeah.
rubbing it and it's purring like, oh, this is just so.
Well, and especially if they were, kittens, younger ones or older ones. Yeah.
I'd have came home with a kitten. I'd have been like, okay, you know what? Allergies be darned. I want this kitten.
I would have. I definitely would have. But I'm really proud of what Kim and Indiana have pulled together the last couple of years. You have it. Should be a picture of the two of them from the bowling tournament. I think I pulled one of those pictures. You have that, Rob? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, there they are. And we've had Kim on the show before a couple times, and we'll get her. That's from Kitten Yoga. So we'll get them back on and talk about their events and what's planned for next year, because they're really doing a really great job.
Yeah, from what I understand, the run, the 5K, the 5K 1 mile run, walk run, I think that's going to be an annual thing, which is nice. I liked, kind of like when you look at ideas and how other organizations do their annual things. I liked what they did with their shirts. Because it was, the same color scheme, same, as last year. And I'm like, that is a good idea not to put the date on it. Because if you don't, like you purchase all these shirts, if you don't use them, at this event, you have them for the next event.
Well, and that is an excellent idea because and that brings up something else too is, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's Out of the Darkness Walk for Pasco County was postponed because of Hurricane Ian. It was supposed to be October 1st. I don't know if they put the dates on the shirts. I don't think that they do. But anyways, it has been rescheduled to November 8th, and it's still at Sims Park. Everything else is the same. It's just the date has changed. So that's another event coming up, and I'm actually going to be one of the speakers at that event. I was kind of glad it ended up being postponed from Hurricane Ian because I wasn't ready, but I will be ready. So that's something to keep in mind too. That I'm sure you can still register for the walk. We'll have a table there. You guys will have a table there. And it should be hopefully really nice weather, even being, a month later. So that's another thing that's coming up. So what else? Do you have anything else going? Oh, you got your other event coming up.
November 17th, the Narcotics Overdose Prevention Education Candlelight Vigil is November 17th at Pasco Hernando State College, the one here in Newport Richey, from 5 to 8. That's one of our upcoming events. And then, also on October 29th from 10 to 2 is the next DEA Take Back.
Oh, they're doing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they always do
spring and fall.
Yeah, they do one in April and then they do one in October. And the two sites, I know that that's a national thing. Like every DEA is doing it, all over the country. The Take Back Day for, like I said, it's October 29th. But for those of us here in Pasco, the two drop sites is the Pasco Sheriff Operations Center, where the courthouse is.
Yeah, on Little Road.
Little Road. They do a drive through there, and you just drop them off. And then the shops at Wiregrass at the parking garage. We do it there. I'll be at the Wiregrass at the parking garage. I would do the parking garage at Wiregrass.
Then you can go shopping afterwards.
I don't. A lot of times I don't go shopping afterwards. I'm like, no, I want to go. No, I'm just ready to go home. I was like, no, I don't want to spend money. Yeah, no. But anyway, that event is really, plays into what our cause. Because it is a way to get unused, expired, and unwanted prescription and over-the-counter medication out. I was at our Friday focus group meeting this morning, and I was talking about the DEA Take Back, and I was was telling the group about kids in Skittle parties, and they what. I was like, Skittle party, farm party. I said, most of the time you'll hear it referred to. And I was amazed how many people had never heard of a Skittle party.
I haven't.
How many? You haven't heard of a Skittle party? Oh.
Well, I don't have kids either.
All right, so, think of the candy Skittles. Okay?
Yeah.
The catchphrase for Skittles is taste the rainbow. So what happens with the Skittles party, as they call it, is it's very prevalent amongst teenagers. So what will happen is the teenagers will go to mom and dad's. I know when other people said they go grandma's medicine cabinet. I was like, it's not just grandma's, but anyway. But anyway, go into the medicine cabinet and just take a prescription pill. Now back in our day, we used to go to BYOB parties. Bring your own bottle,
right.
Or bring your own booze.
Right.
Well, fast forward to children, it's now like a BYOP party. Bring your own pills. And so what happens is when you walk into wherever the party is, you put the pills that you have, you dump them into this bowl, And so there's so who's ever
my
the host,
gosh.
they, mix these, pills up into this bowl. And so it's a mixture of prescription and most of the time it's prescription pills. So, kids are just, scooping out, taking, a pill or two out of the bowl and ingesting it. The problem with it is you don't know what you're taking.
No.
So you have no clue,
Oh my gosh. I
you
never.
know, how it's going to affect. I did a group, on this very topic. And I shared with, the students, I said, I have a true story about this. And I said, I said, I was in an emergency room one day. And, there was this young man who had gone to one of these parties, going back years ago. This young man had gone to this party, one of those parties, and he had, ingested a couple of pills. He started hallucinating and, almost lost him, almost lost him. And, they were like 1 minute, if you, were talking to him, he could answer you just as, plain as, you and I are talking right now. There are other times where you would talk to him, ask him a question, and he'd start laughing at you because as he started hallucinating, he could start seeing you with two heads, or, like everything was funny. Like, he was like on this way. We, trying to figure out what, he ingested. Didn't know. Ended up having to, couldn't get him to, give us a urine sample, so we had to cath him. And I'm sitting back as I'm telling the story, to, the students, and we're talking about farm parties and whatnot. I'm like, now can you imagine being the parent of this child? You're watching your teenage child, having these hallucinations, and, you don't know, like the doctors don't know what to give them. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know if this, if your child's going to survive or not. Can you imagine being on that roller coaster because of this party? And we follow it up with explaining the dangers of taking meds that are not yours, or you don't know how you're going to react to them and whatnot. And so as the students are watching me as I'm telling this story, and I was like, it was horrific. It was gut wrenching. It was scary. Never wanted to experience anything like that, because at the end of the when it's all said and done, I look at him, I was like, now that parent was me. The child at the farm party was Patrick.
Oh, wow.
And they look at me and they're like, ah. And I'm sitting back thinking, as a teenager, he had went to one of these farm parties, and luckily, we figured out, that they were able to monitor him until he can, whatever. And I tell people, when I'm with groups and whatnot, sharing, the stories of, addiction and struggles and whatnot, Patrick's struggles.
Right.
I always shared the stories with his permission. There's a couple of times where he even, when he was in that period of recovery, or, when he was in recovery, even asked, hey, I'll even come and be a guest speaker for you one day. And I was like, I think it would be a good idea. That would be nice. But yeah, there's no question, so, getting back to, DEA take back, there's no questions asked, you just roll up, hand us your, your pills, we throw them in a box, it goes to, the sheriff's department, DEA picks it up, and the pills are incinerated. They don't do liquids, they don't do sharps at the take back. But I remember in April when we did this woman, she rolls up and she says, I have a lot. And we're like, okay. And she opens her trunk, and literally this trunk full
Oh my gosh.
of pills. And we're like, well, coming from that, she, her parents lived in a 55 plus community. And basically, everybody in the neighborhood gave her their
all
pills,
their stuff, yeah.
to
Well,
bring
it's
in.
a much safer way
Yes,
to
it is.
dispose of them, because even they say you don't want to flush them, you don't want to throw them in the garbage. People will pluck them out of the garbage. It's not good for the environment. This is a safe way to get them out of the community.
But now there is a safe way to throw them in the trash. You know, we have these. We have these bags. They're called deterra bags, and deactivation bags. And basically, what you do is it has like a charcoal, thing in it, where you pour the pills into the bag, add water, shake it up, and then you can throw it in the trash. It deactivates. I was also. This past August, I was at a drug summit, like you're at a drug summit now. It's training. It's, the Tampa Bay Drug Summit. It's, those of us that are in, prevention and do this kind of work, we go there. But it's very interesting, when I'm doing these summits and whatnot, learning and finding out, new things that are on the market for, safe and, proper disposal of meds.
Right.
But there was another company who had this little packet, and I forget what the name of it is right now. But, it made me think of, like when you do your water, the little, drink packets that you, pull and you put in your water and lemonade or something like that. But anyway, the packet thingy is about that size. You take, add it to your actual prescription bottle, add water, shake it up, and the minute you look at it, you actually watch the pills are disintegrating before your eyes. And when you open up the bottle, the pills are reduced to like a what does it make me think of? That slime that the kids play with.
Oh, yeah.
But it's kind of like that, and it's like stuck inside the bottle.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, this is really, again, a very innovative way to safely dispose of meds.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
So, again, between the take back, you have the tear bags, you have, pill deactivations. No reason why pills should be going in, down the trash or
Right.
in a landfill somewhere.
Or at these parties for these kids.
Or at these parties where these,
Oh, that's just crazy. So the Note Vigil is November 17th. That actually happens to be Bobby's birthday.
Yeah, thank you. There's the flyer.
Yeah, there it is.
But yeah, 5 to 8. We're excited that it's in person. Pasco Hernando State College has been, hosting this providing the venue for us for years now. They actually paid for whoever the keynote speaker is. Like they're providing the funding for the keynote speaker.
That's good. Hopefully I can be there. We're working on a schedule. Sometime in November, I'm going to be doing a presentation at Our Lady Queen of Peace Church. They're pulling together the leaders of the religious communities, all different denominations, and so it's going to be a Thursday night that I'm speaking, but I'll find out Monday what the date is. But that might be one of the dates. I don't know yet, but we'll find out here shortly, Monday. And we'll have a flyer for that. That's why I'm taking her all the information so she can get a flyer done up for that. And we'll be heading into the holidays. Oh, and then I think it's that Saturday, do I have the date, is Suicide Loss Survivors Day is the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So it's the 17th, so probably
24th?
the 19th.
No, 17th is Thursday, so that
So
would
it'd be the 19th. So I think November 19th is Suicide Loss Survivors Day. And there's not going to be one in Pasco County. I think Pinellas is where the Tampa Bay area in-person event is going to be. So, but as it gets a little bit closer, we'll have some more information, particularly because it will happen not long after the Out of the Darkness Walk. So, we're almost done with our book.
We are almost done with our book.
If you haven't followed along, you can get the book through our website or QR code. And if you want to go, still go through it with us, you can, because you can get all of our shows on demand on our website. But we just had a couple, and I wanted to get started on this a little bit earlier because I really want to finish this book up today. We have a little bit of chapter 17.
A couple of pages left on chapter 15 and then into 16.
Now, a couple chapters left on 16. We were
a couple of pages left on 15, and then we have chapter 16.
No.
We were in 15. Yeah.
No, we were in 16. Because look at page 167. That's chapter 16. We went through that. I think we were just about, I think
treasure box.
The treasure box.
Treasure box, yeah.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. It is chapter 16.
So, yeah,
I need to calibrate my glasses. 6 looks like 5.
So,
I think we left off as companions, not replacements.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, because I remember we were talking about the me coloring my treasure box and you're not.
Yeah, we talked about the so much of grief. Yeah. This is we were touching on this a little bit. So much of grief support and even just everyday life involves the yes but response. Yes, they're gone, but you should be grateful. Yes, you're sad, but the sun is shining. The flowers are pretty. Don't they make you feel pretty? You've got so much good in your life right now. Why are you still thinking of them? And I think we talked about this a little last week in terms of that word "but," which is a very it's a tricky word in the English language. I know those of us, in the psych world, we have a phrase that says "lose your butt." Because the idea is the minute you say "but," that cancels out everything
what
you
said prior,
beforehand.
right?
And I, when I'm dealing with youth, especially when I hear someone say, "Well, I don't mean to be rude, but," and then they say to themselves, like, no, which is basically what you're saying is you have every intention to be rude. You've just given yourself permission. Or you want me not to get so upset because what you're about to tell me is going to be rude. And, the thing about, to me with "but" is, for that very reason, because it cancels out what you're saying before, prior to, it, in some ways, at least in my opinion, minimizes what comes after. So, in other words, when I'm looking at this, like where it says, yes, they're gone, but you should be grateful. And I'm like, grateful for what? Or how off-putting, that phrase, right? I understand you're grieving, and again, if I go back to, I understand you're grieving, but you have other children. Okay, it doesn't change the fact that, I tell everybody, I'm still a mother of 3.
Right.
I have 3 children. Just because one's not presently here doesn't mean that I'm still not. I gave birth to 3 children, just saying. And again, I think a lot of, people tend to take refuge against, with "but," because again, my opinion, even though "but" cancels out everything that came before the "but," I focus on what came before the "but." Again, going back to, I don't mean to be rude, but blah, blah, blah. No, you mean to be rude. Mm-hmm. Yes, they're gone, but you should be grateful. Okay, you're right, they're gone,
But what's there to be grateful about?
Well, I look at it like this. It depends on, what's, how you process the, what do you have to be grateful about? I sit back and I think, when you're helping people through grief, it's like, okay, again, I'll personalize it for a second. I'm grateful for the memories. I'm grateful for the fact that, I had 33 years with Patrick. I had 14, years with Aiden. Yeah. I could sit back and say, oh, I regret, if I use Aiden, I regret not going back to, Kansas more often, to visit. However, I'm grateful for the 14 years that we had him. I'm grateful that, when I look at, people in terms of getting through negative stuff, hey, there's resiliency. Hey, we're still here. Things may be a little sucky, however, we're still here. The community is grateful because of this foundation. Yeah, again, rather have Bobby still here.
I'd rather, yeah.
However, there's a gratefulness that the foundation exists.
Well, and too, like, what you're saying with Patrick and with Aiden, with me, it's, I got 30 years with Bobby, and that's one thing that kind of helps to focus on. If you turn that gratefulness up a little bit, is look, we had 30 years together. He was diagnosed with MS 25 years before he died. We had no idea what was going to happen way back then. So we were really fortunate to have him as long as what we did. I'm grateful that he's not in pain anymore.
Right.
I would still rather him be here, pain or not, but that's selfishness on my part, but, because I miss him. I want him to be there. For me, there was more of our future, and that he doesn't get to experience in person.
Well, I mean, and that's true, and I think, I feel you, because again, if I look at, having Devin, Pat is not going to be able to experience, Devin going to high school, Devin graduating, potentially one day Devin, getting married, having kids of his, children of his own. At the same time, there is the gratefulness that foundation that, Patrick equipped Devin with to deal with, the world. I'm sitting back, I don't know if I shared this last week or not, Devin, his grandfather's now gone.
Right.
And, I looked at, how he handled, the news of his, losing his granddad. And as I'm sitting back and I'm listening to, him verbalize, how he's feeling about that, I was like, oh, I am so grateful that, this is a lesson that he learned from, his dad. Yeah, I can look back and say, oh, I can take some credit for this because he lives with me. I can. However, I would sit back and look, no. A lot of his mindset and how he handles it, I give that full credit to his dad. That's all his father. She says here where she goes, beautiful things don't replace other things. Moments of happiness or pleasure don't negate other feelings. Life isn't a swap meet where we trade one thing for another. Instead, we might consider these moments and feelings as companions. Then she, finishes this particular chapter with, life isn't either or, it's both and. And, so what I find, when we're dealing with, what the crappy stuff that life throws at us is, it's okay to be angry or sad or, have these negative emotions. Understand that along with, anger and sadness, or in this, in the case of grief, sadness, there is some happiness that, and I think it's important that you allow and embrace the happiness.
Yeah, it's like she says, it's not an either or. You can have both. It's learning to adjust to that. Because that's not really what our society is taught so much.
What do you mean?
That you can be there. There is room for both. You know, we have a hard time. Well, number one, grief has been downplayed so much in our society. It's, you know, people, as for instance, people say, oh, you know, you should be over this by now. Well, you can't tell me how long I get to grieve. You know, you can't tell me what my process is. Yeah, and I had somebody say this, you know, and this was a few years ago, you know, he's been gone for 3 years. She should be over this. Get on with your life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. Maybe it works for you, but it doesn't work for me. And two, sometimes it's, if you feel happy, and we have mentioned this before, you have those twinges of happiness and then you feel guilty. You know, and you really shouldn't feel guilty. In the next chapter, I have something that I thought of that I wanted to share, and it kind of goes along with those lines. But
yeah, I think I would word it just a little bit differently, or I see it just a tad bit differently. It's more than just a downplaying of grief to me. It is grief, like, you know, other topics are uncomfortable for some people. And so because we're uncomfortable, you know, that downplay becomes more of I don't want to have to deal with the uncomfortableness of, you know,
well,
what
yeah,
you're going
that
through.
too. That, yeah, no,
You know,
absolutely.
And that you know, that feeling of discomfort comes from a couple of different places. You know, I want to say a lot of times what I hear, you know, or even, you know, what I've processed myself when I'm, you know, dealing with someone who, you know, has just suffered a loss. I don't want to say the wrong thing, you know, or it is, you know, how can I help, knowing that there's nothing I can do to help,
Right.
or you know, attempting to help and find out that, you know, what I think I'm helping or how I think I am helping is not always helping. And so, yeah, it's a combo of you know, just different things in terms of how do we deal with that is uncomfortable. And I think, again, for a lot of people, grief and loss is uncomfortable. And the downplay is more for their comfort than it is for anybody else. Now, moving on, beauty as an ally. What'd she say there? When all feels lost, we can still look for beauty. The presence of beauty doesn't magically remove all pain, but the absence of beauty makes things a lot harder to bear. I love that, you know, because it does go, you know, I think it, I look at this and I would equate this to memories, you know. You know, have said, you know, I'm addicted to social media. You know, I'm going to use the book. And I find sometimes when my memories pop up, there are some memories that I was like, oh, that was going on. That was really, you know, a difficult time for me. And at the same time, I can embrace, you know, like, wow, look at this, you know. 3 years ago, I was dealing with this, and look at me now. You know, but along with that, every time I see a negative memory pop up or something that might be potentially negative, at the same time, there's something positive that pops up. Or, again, if I go back to Pat, you know, I see a memory of when he did his very first stand-up gig, you know, at you know, one of our local comedy clubs. When that hit my memory, you know, my memories feed, I could have very easily been down in the dumps and crying and bawling, oh my God, he's not here anymore. But instead, you know, it was like, I miss him. I remember this night. I remember that, you know, this was his first stand-up gig. I remember how, excited he was to be on stage. I remember, feeling the energy in the room when he was doing his set. I remember all, those of us that went to support him, and, how we felt, cheering him on and whatnot. And, I am, back to the gratefulness. I'm so grateful that I was able to see that. Yeah, there is that twang that goes in. It's like, oh my gosh, I wish he was still here and still doing stand-up. I wish he was still here making us all laugh. However, it's comforting to know that he filmed a lot of his routines or best stuff, and it's memorialized on a page, so we can go and see it
Right.
anytime.
Well, and that's what she's trying to say, in which I love the end of this book. It's, you can have grief and joy. You can have grief and beauty. You can have grief and hope. And yeah, the last thing, beauty exists even in your grief.
So she goes on to say, living what you've lived, you carry the knowledge that not everyone else has. You know what it is like to move through one world with a part of your heart in another. And again, this speaks to, understanding, and, where she she then follows that with, do you have to reach acceptance? And, where she says a friend's husband drowned while they were on vacation. 6 years on, she wrote, I'm struggling with acceptance, not just acceptance of his death, but the acceptance of what my life is now, acceptance of the regular feeling of sadness and aloneness, acceptance of what is. And, I love the way she explains that, and I'm going to quote here, acceptance is another one of those words that's often used as a weapon when people are grieving. You don't have to accept they died. You can't heal until you find acceptance. Or, you have to accept they died. You can't heal until... Acceptance means the action of taking or receiving what is offered. And, acceptance to me falls along that same line of that word closure. And I had someone look at me and it's like, what is closure? And I'm like, I had to laugh, because I'm like, I was taught that word closure. I used that word closure. Closure. I said, until we went to Dr. Wolford's, seminar, and he said what he said about closure, and I'm like, thank you for saying that. Because those two words, acceptance and closure, as she points out here, can be weaponized. You're never going to accept the person's gone.
And she's, acceptance can be a tall order. You don't have to accept what happened. I don't know how people even suggest it's possible. Some things are unacceptable. Instead of acceptance, we look towards admission as more than an achievable goal. Admission can be defined as letting in or acknowledging.
Exactly, and I like what she said, and I like what she says. Acknowledging the fact, acknowledging what is reality, what your reality, your new reality right now, and what I interpret from the whole letting in piece that she says here, it is allowing those feelings, those emotions, that process, to happen, without either you yourself or allowing someone else to impede that process, whatever it looks like for you.
Well, and it's probably something, it's going to continue probably the rest of your life.
Yes.
Because it's like you said, there is no such thing as closure.
Yeah, there's only, acceptance of moving on. Yeah.
So, she, at the end of this, the last chapter, refers to this book as a journal. So when we finish up the book, you keep the book, and this is what, and I do this quite often because I have like little books everywhere that I've written. I'll write something for something else, and then I don't look at it. Then I come across it and I look at it. So it's something that you can go back through and look at if you mark in your book like I do. And you can, it's amazing to see, even if you don't think that you have grown through or with what you're going through, it's visually there to see. And that's what I like about this book. And I love this last chapter.
Well, the thing about it is, and I know we joke about this all the time. I don't write in my books. To me, it's a little sacrilege for me to write a book, unless it's a coloring book. Even though I know this book and a couple other books that we've previewed are designed to be written in, I keep note cards. Because for me, I don't want to it's like, all right, I don't have to, where was that at, where was that at, where was that at? I make little flashcards or note cards to myself, so that way, it's like, oh, this was at a chapter, like, let me highlight what came out of this chapter for me. Because, it's sacrilege to write a book.
Well, mine's really colorful.
No, and of course you know I'm joking.
I don't.
But no, I do. I love these books that are not just a pick up a book, read it, and digest what's here. I love that they're the interactive, make you kind of think activities.
Yes, and her book is totally that way. And our last chapter here, chapter 17, is Freedom to Live. And when I picked this up earlier in the week and started reading this, I was like, this chapter is a perfect chapter and perfect timing for me. Working through a lot of the things that I've been trying to work through for a little over a year now, being more conscious about it. I love this chapter. It says, while it may not always be acutely heavy, your grief, like your love, will always be a part of you. Life can be, and even likely will be, beautiful again. But that's a life built alongside loss, informed by beauty and grace, and as much as by devastation, not one that seeks to erase it. And I like, this is what I like about what she wrote in this book. If this were any other kind of book, this last chapter would be a happy ending. We'd circle back to name the lessons learned, celebrate your transformation, and cap everything off with a rainbow or a sunset. But it's not that kind of book. Instead, here is the last chapter. We need to talk about difficult things: joy, meaning, and hope.
Yeah, and I like that where, she says, living here alongside your loss won't be easy. And, again, having, someone to have the insight to, include that in this book, just, basically said, hey, there's, Now, I would look at you and say, could there be joy and sunshine and rainbows after all of this? Yeah, you can. I mean, you can, I think you can experience, joy and happiness after a loss without the immense overriding guilt. I know we fight about, or we have to take issue with that, word closure. At the same time, I think about, in dealing with, with loss, what would that person say if, if the roles were reversed, if I were gone and it were them and they were talking to everybody else, that was affected by the loss, and I can say, hey, they would probably be saying, I get it, you're sad. However, I want you to live your life. I don't want you to dwell on, the fact that I'm here. If you are, a spiritually based individual, you'll see me again.
Right.
You will see me again. So I love what she, put here. It's like, where she says joy is complicated. It's not like you can follow a few easy steps and make your way from mourning to elation, no matter what some advertisements claim. Real life is not that simple. And again, I feel she hammers it home with that in terms of, no, there is no magic bullet that's going to erase, the pain that you've felt. There's no magic bullet that's going to miraculously make, the loss, less significant. I remember waking up one morning, I had, this dream. It was very vivid, and it popped up on my memories. Like the dream you wake up from that you wish was reality. But I actually dreamt that Patrick came back, and he was in his room, and he was looking at how, I redecorated. We started a project before he left, and he was like, "Mom, I really love the room. I like the colors. I love the new furniture, and like that." But somewhere in the room, but on one of the walls was a picture of a unicorn. But he's like, "That's got to go." And of course, I'm looking at this room, and I'm, when I woke up from the dream, and I'm, posting about it. Where'd the unicorn come from? And, a couple of my friends came back and they were like, yeah, if you see a unicorn in a dream, it's kind of like seeing the dragonfly.
Right.
There's something symbolic about it. So it's like, okay, what would he say? He would say, Mom, I know you're sad, but, get over it. And I see him, get over it, Mom. All right, so.
Well, and I remember the first time that I actually felt like joy or happiness after Bobby died. It was a girlfriend from high school, Sue, had invited, her daughter lives up in the Panhandle, and they wanted to go to a Jacksonville Jaguars football game. Mm-hmm. And so they invited me up, and it was like a 2 or 3 day thing. And so I went up with them, and there was like 4 of us girls all together. And we actually ran into another girl we went to high school with who lives in Tampa Bay area. And but we had fun. And I remember coming back from that and talking to my sister-in-law. I said, I was happy. Mm-hmm. It was, we had fun. And I said, it's the first time I've felt that way. And so I need it to last longer. And it didn't last as long as I wanted it to. But I felt it, and it felt good. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like, it's just got to come back and stay a little, just when those times happen, just come and stay a little bit longer.
Exactly.
Come and stay a little bit longer.
But the thing about it is we have to allow, the happiness to stay. I think sometimes what happens is, we'll get into these feelings of elation and joy and happiness and whatnot, and then suddenly, the other side of our brain clicks in, you're not supposed to be happy. You're not supposed to be feeling this. The guilt comes in when it's like, okay, like she says here, you can have both, and it is not one or the other.
Right. She said, joy will return. It doesn't mean that you're not sad.
Exactly.
And that's, incorporating those into that. So we're not going to finish the book.
We are not going to finish this chapter today. We will finish this chapter.
We'll finish the chapter next week.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, too, since we're finishing up this book, maybe we should come up with maybe like 3 choices of books to present and see if you out there want to choose one in particular for us to do next. So we had to work on that this week, and we'll have the information on all the books available for next week's show, and see what's going to come after this. But I'm excited about the rest of this chapter.
Yes.
So remember the events that are coming up, and we'll keep reminding you until they get here.
And we'll talk about them after.
And we'll talk about them
We'll talk
after.
about it.
And remember the lifelines that are available. The new 988 number is both a call and text number. And if you can't remember them, keep them in your phone. I'd keep them in your phone anyways. I always remind people to do that. And let's see. Oh, I want to say real quick before we go to our quote. Did you see my hat?
I like that.
Bobby White Foundation hat. We had this done. Dora in the mall here. Logos in the mall. She did this hat for us. Do it this way. Bobby liked camo, so these are going to be available too. So if you're interested in one of these hats, just get a hold of us. All the million ways you can get a hold of us. And our quote for today is, and it actually came out of our book, "Freedom to live. You've never had to live this before. So be gentle with yourself as you figure it out."
Nice one.
So we'll finish up the book next week. We'll have choices for our next book for you to participate in with us.
Again, be mindful of, not the events, here. I mean, we're here in Pasco County, Florida. If not, events here, but think about events that are, where you are, that you can become involved with. They're very uplifting.
Well, and that way, you're not alone.
Exactly.
And we always like to end our show with, remember, there's always hope.